I'm Storm Track 8 Chief Meteorologist Ashley Brown. After a wet and windy day, we're going to deal with damp, cloudy, and breezy conditions tonight. Here's the temperature trend. We should be at around 33, but tonight is a night we'll spend the night above average. 50s for most of the evening, and by midnight down into the 40s tomorrow morning. Many locations you wake up to temperatures in the upper 30s. So as we look at the trend here, you'll notice that the trend finally above average. Wind still dealing with a little wind tonight as well. Breezy until around 8-9 p.m. The winds begin to relax a bit, light breeze in the overnight hours, and by tomorrow morning, calm enough that winds are between 5 and 10 miles per hour. So those winds becoming light, temperatures remaining mild. Light scattered showers possible for us late tonight. They're about 9 p.m. After that, spotty sprinkles, yes, and the best chance of rain happens from Bloomington to Columbus and Bedford overnight. We'll see light to moderate rain there, but by late morning, we start to dry out. We'll even decrease the cloud cover enough to bring some sunshine back to you tomorrow. Temperatures not as warm as what you experienced today. We're only expecting highs in the 40s. For your Friday. Here's your Friday forecast. Temperatures by noon at 41. At that point, we're starting to decrease cloud cover, but we're still mostly cloudy. By about 2 p.m., 43 degrees. Temperatures peak at 45. Partly sunny skies. Dry air in place. Friday, a decent day for us. It's not perfect. It's below average, but definitely seeing the process of drying out. Now, moisture comes back to us on Friday night, but it's mainly in the overnight hours. So your Friday night football, things looking a-okay. Definitely not as cool as some of the Fridays we've had, but we'll cool things down. Upper 30s for you to start those games with a light breeze. It will feel like the mid to low 30s out there. Wind not picking up too much, but enough to factor in a wind chill. The overnight hours on your Friday into Saturday, moisture comes back. It's another weak disturbance moving in. This one brings the chance of a wintry mix. Now, this is an isolated chance. Not everyone will see this. You'll see the chance of a little snow, I think, mainly before 10 a.m. mixing with the rain. Showers are isolated into the noon hour, and then the rain moves out. But the clouds, they'll stay around throughout the day on your Saturday. So Saturday is a day that we continue the cooling trend. Now, we cool on Saturday, of course, seeing temperatures below average for us, starting out in the 30s with that chance of rain. Temperatures only in the low 40s. At about 41, 42 degrees for Saturday. By Sunday, we're at 43. We'll see warming up, right? Warming slightly, but still below average. Sunday's a nice day because of the sunshine that we'll have. Your Chapman Heating and Cooling 8-day forecast here. Temperatures in the 40s this weekend for us. By Monday, we're back at 50 degrees. Monday looks like a fantastic day. Showers back with us on Tuesday. By Thanksgiving Day, sunshine, dry air, and cool conditions. Temperatures in the 40s during the afternoon hours. Overnight temperatures in the 30s.